इतने सारे स्मार्टफोन्स आजकल लॉन्च होते हैं that is very difficult to be excited about all the devices. But the one which I am going to talk about today is something that I'm personally looking forward to. And the phone that I'm talking about is the Poco F3 GT. And the reason why I'm excited about it is because it's almost been 3 years since the first Poco F series smartphone was launched in India. And we are finally getting an official successor. And to talk about the phone, I have with me Poco India's country director, Anuj Sharma, and I will try to get some exclusive information out of him. But first, let me just welcome Anuj. Anuj, how are you doing? Are you excited? Are you nervous? What is this feeling like?
Thanks, Manas. Thanks for having me over. Yes, 3 years. It is, I mean, obviously, we are very, very excited to be able to put together a phone which we think does justice to the F series legacy. And of course, how things have changed over the last 3 years. Uh, but also quite nervous because, what I see is the overall expectations being extremely high. uh, that is obviously a part that scares all of us. I think, will we be able to finally meet that or not?
Yeah. Now, Anuj, we have talked about Poco F series on multiple occasions in the past. You have been on Talking Tech as well before, and then also we talked about this F successor. And every time you have told me the same thing, Manas, हम काम कर रहे हैं, but this is not the right time to launch the phone. So I want to understand from you what makes it the right time to get a F1 successor.
Yeah. So I think last year when we were looking at F series, and we had this discussion last time also, right?
Yeah.
Last year, the lockdown one had come in, COVID was just getting started. We did not really know what to expect from the market. Uh, what we realized was after a certain point, especially in the second half of last year, things started looking a lot better, which gave us an indication of the importance of a smartphone in a person's life,
Yeah.
where a lot of people obviously, did cut back on spends, but they were looking at different kind of smartphones for their usage. Uh, so extrapolating from there to this year, now this year, you know, back in January or February, I think February is again when we were connected once,
Yeah.
things were looking quite bullish. What happened in March, April, May, I don't think any of us anticipated that. It was devastating at multiple levels. Uh, and of course, the overall loss, uh, I don't think can be recovered. However, again, the criticality of phones in people's life is kind of coming to the fore. And obviously, the most important part is, as a brand, where are we? Uh, we definitely wanted to check that box of a F1 successor.
सर दिखा दो फिर एक बार phone.
Soon, pretty soon. So we should be able to launch this
आपने
quite
इतना
soon.
ज्यादा एक्साइटेड कर दिया ना इतनी बात करके बोला दिखाई देते बट we'll talk about the features in detail, but let me start with the name itself because in the last 18 months or so I think I've heard every kind of smartphone name I possibly could have. There are Pro Max, Ultras, SEs, Cs, everything is selling, and now you've also got a GT, a
Yeah.
Poco F3 GT. So what is the idea behind this name?
So GT actually, so credit where it's due. This name actually came in from Kevin and Angus from the global team. When we were devising a product like this one, they said this thing has it has the performance, or actually the sustained performance that is required from a device, or essentially what was expected from the GT cars of the past. That's where this other part comes in as well, which is how comfortable is the device. Uh, and that's also one new factor for the F series, where we are actually focusing a lot on design, build, construction. Something historically, I think from Poco perspective, we've never really focused too much. I mean, design, yes, but choosing the premium materials to kind of
Yeah,
put something together.
because that's something very interesting here because you have always been focusing on the looks or the unique design language, but this time you're also talking about the sturdiness and the premiumness of the phone, and you have in fact, teased the slipstream design on the Poco F3 GT. So I just wanted to understand the concept. कि ये क्या है actual में design?
So it's interesting. So Slipstream has nothing to do with how slippery the device is. It is again to go with the whole GT theme, where Slipstream. I don't know if any of the gamers are watching this. In the old racing games, when you got into that place behind another car, you have that slipstream effect coming in. Essentially, lesser drag, better aerodynamics. Something similar here. So it's more of cutting out the bulk, having a finish which is still grippy, but does not become overbearing. It's also the new racing cars have this matte paint applied to them. The reason for the racing cars obviously is matte versus shiny. They're able to shed off a couple of grams. That helps. And the second one is with the kind of finish that they put, it's taking in a lot less debris so that it doesn't slow that down. So all of that aspect coming in. So slipstream design in this case is a whole bunch of finishes that we've got. Actually, every F3 GT back panel goes through 22 stages of processes. So these are essentially, it's actually dual engraved. There's etching happening. There's obviously buffing and polishing at multiple levels for each of the different finishes. So actually at the back, when you will get the device and you take a look at it, there are 3 different finishes that you see in that same glass panel.
So it's a glass back that you're looking
Yes,
at.
it is a glass back.
And what are the color options? How many color variants are there?
So we are looking at 2 very interesting colors.
Okay.
And the first one is called the Predator Black.
Okay, interesting name there.
Essentially, it's black, but it's matte black, along with a matte black frame that goes completely with it. And the second one is almost an opposite side. Again, I mean, from a color perspective, it's not again shiny, it's still matte, but that's called gunmetal silver.
Okay.
So gunmetal silver is essentially again a nod to the whole action side of it.
Yeah.
But gunmetal is also this little grayish finish that you can get on that silver.
But very exciting colors there. Now, Anuj, apart from that, what can you tell us about the device? You told that you are focusing on a multimedia sort of experience. So is it an AMOLED display?
Yes, but I think a lot more.
Okay.
So again, multimedia is another part where we saw a lot of people not really focusing on this at a larger level. And this is a disappointing part for me. And I've said this multiple times. I remember last year around this time, July, August, I was seeing phone launches coming in at 27, 30,000, even a couple of them slightly north of 30, all calling themselves flagship killers. I'm not saying that the FCGT is supposed to be a flagship killer. I think it is a different zone of its own. But the compromises were stunning. And one of the main aspect of this is I wanted a high refresh rate AMOLED, but I also wanted a panel that could do DC dimming.
Okay.
Now, DC dimming is important for any display built on the OLED technology because OLED technology works on a sinusoidal wave, right? So uh, when you reduce brightness, it reduces the amplitude of those waves, which basically means at a certain point, the display could start cutting off, or what we will see is flicker.
Yeah.
And not everyone sees it, but even if 10% of the people who buy a F3 GT were to see that flicker, I think it was not a good experience.
Yeah.
You want 100% of the people to be happy with it. So I wanted DC dimming on this particular phone, and to give that vibrant display even better effect. So a high refresh rate panel, we're talking about 120 hertz, and then
Okay.
You've got a DC dimming as well.
Okay.
Uh, but not just that, the display panel also does HDR10
Okay.
plus.
Okay.
So you've got a color accurate display
Yeah.
along with that. So you've got obviously a high brightness HDR10 plus display doing a 120 uh, hertz refresh rate.
Yeah.
It's got DC dimming, and then it's a DCI P3 color gamut 100%. With what you see is of course the part for what you hear. And for Poco, actually, right from X3, we've had, I mean, X3 had brilliant speakers, X3 Pro has brilliant speakers. So it was pretty much a no-brainer that we put really good speakers on the F3 GT. I think by a fair distance, these are the best speakers that we put on a phone. We,
Okay.
as in Poco.
Poco, yeah.
Uh, Again, when you're comparing this, and we obviously do a whole bunch of tests with all the devices that are selling, at 30,000, at 35,000, at 40,000. So we've done a whole bunch of things. I don't think anything comes close.
And these are stereo speakers.
And these are stereo speakers.
Dolby Atmos?
Uh, with Dolby
With
Atmos
Dolby
on the
Atmos?
speakers.
Yeah. Okay. So that's the second thing that Anuj has confirmed for us. After the display, you're getting a stereo speaker with Dolby Atmos support, right?
Correct.
What else, Anuj, do you have for us in terms of maybe camera processor? I think it's
So
Dimensity
yeah, I
12.
mean, so we know the processor. It's a
Yeah.
Dimensity 1200. So that's the point, right? That 1200 driving, obviously your games and your everyday usage, that does really good job. But then on top of that, what you are going to see on the display and what you hear
Yeah.
from an everyday thing, right? Even if it's a voice call, it starts making a difference. Another interesting thing is uh, this phone actually, normally every phone has two mics. One is for your primary voice when you're taking a
Yeah.
call, and the other one is for noise cancelling.
Noise cancellation.
Uh, we decided to put three.
Okay.
And the basic idea was, I last week I think I did mention this because uh, the F3 GT is probably the first phone in its segment that has three levels of beveling on the single metal frame. So we're expecting a lot of people to be watching content. This is the X3 Pro, but I'm just going to hold it. So if you're watching a content and suppose a call comes in, chances are that your primary mic could be blocked. And this is where the third mic kicks in and really helps there.
And I'm hearing that there are also more than one Wi-Fi antennas just for.
And yeah, that's there. So a lot of, I mean, most phones have one Wi-Fi antenna, of course, because that's uh, the easiest way or the most cost efficient way of doing this. Certain phones have two Wi-Fi antennas. So essentially the point being that if one antenna is not able to get the right amount of signal, the second one kicks in and things like that. We've decided to go with three in this one.
Okay.
So essentially, I guess obviously it helps with the antenna attenuation and the signal strength. Or maybe was it because it was F3, so put three mics and three. No, I'm just kidding.
That would have been too convenient, by the way.
I'm just kidding, but yeah. So that was also a choice where whatever you're doing on the phone, however you're holding it, whatever orientation it is, uh, from the three mic system perspective, your call quality will not be affected,
Okay.
or your chat quality, right? So if you're doing
if you're playing a game and the in call,
correct, or if you're using VoIP or something like that, and likewise, however you are holding the phone, the antennas will still hold up. One of the three antennas will always kick in and ensure that you have the right Wi-Fi strength coming in there.
So shoulder buttons hai?
We'll talk about all of those things at a later stage.
Later stage, चलिए कोई नहीं. अच्छा, इसके अलावा can you tell us anything about the battery, camera, anything that you
Uh,
can reveal?
so not I don't think my team will allow me to talk about those things too much, but it is a phenomenal battery as well,
Okay.
or battery life.
Okay.
Uh, there's been a concern that I've had for quite some time, right? And I remember uh, some, I think last year when Mancho was still around, someone asked us, saying, "Why are you not using fast charging on the X3 at that point?"
Okay.
And my concern has been that there is a level to which you can charge fast enough without really damaging the battery. And I think with X3 and the X3 Pro, we've been using the 33-watt middle tab, which is essentially a
Yeah.
parallel charge. It does not stress the battery, and hence you get a long battery life cycle. So, for example, if your battery is rated for 800 recharge cycles or 1,000 recharge cycles, it will give you that. Uh, from a pure chemical process perspective, fast charging will hamper the number of cycles that you can get. Uh, so that's something that we've been trying to solve for. So let's see where we land.
हाँ मतलब ये तो एक जेन्युइन कंसर्न है, हम लोग को भी रहता है. वी यूजुअली गेट एक्साइटेड अबाउट दिस कि आधे घंटे में फोन चार्ज हो गया, बट वी आल्सो नो दैट समवेयर इट्स
Correct.
harming the phone.
So for people like you, because I'm sure you are getting multiple phones a week to
Yeah.
review,
Yeah.
so you might not be able to see the life cycle of a phone,
Yeah.
right? So I mean, I don't think you would have any phone in the last few years that you used for 2-3 years.
Yeah, absolutely not. सवाल ही नहीं उठता. 3 महीने चल जाए तो मतलब बहुत बड़ी बात है.
Exactly.
Now moving on, we features की बात सारी हो गई है. The last time we talked a couple of months back, you told me that whenever this Poco F series phone will come, it will be slightly towards a more premium category because it's not possible to price it as aggressively as the Poco F1. So what is the pricing that we are looking at now with the Poco F3 GT?
I mean, it'll definitely go up. It's a tricky.
Above what?
It's a tricky question because obviously I can't give you the right values, but uh, it's incredibly hard. Obviously, 2018, to some extent, even 2019 were golden years from what you could get at a particular price.
Yeah.
So, at that point, we had the Poco F1 at 21,000. And in fact, by about February of 2019, you could get a phone like the Redmi Note 7 Pro at 13,999.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, the two aspects that are coming in when we're looking at the F3 GT, one is, and the first one, which is our control, is just doing, like I said, just doing a Poco F1 replacement where we cut out everything else and just keep that high performance and all of that itself would have gone up by about 15-20%. But if you look at the F1 was just one big variable, right? It was essentially performance, like the X3 Pro. So X3 Pro does that job beautifully, but we also realize that once people start moving up into the mid-premium segment, the expectations change.
Yeah.
That you're not just happy with just one aspect. You need multiple aspects. So for example, the build, the construction, the glass finish, the 22 stages of finish that we're putting on the glass, all of that is expensive. And those are factors that are required to be able to make a difference in that particular price class. So it's going to be a lot more expensive than the Poco F1, but I'm hoping at its price, it's unlike any other phone.
Sir, segment बता. 35 के नीचे?
Hopefully.
Hopefully 35 के 30 के नीचे? मतलब 35 के नीचे तो confirmed.
Sorry, yeah, I mean, so that's the second part of it, right? The second part that we've seen is the global smartphone prices and the component prices have all risen.
Yeah, of course. That there is no
So
argument about that.
Yeah, so it's impossible. Just these are the external variables. It's impossible for me right now. Actually, things are moving so quickly that today, if I was to pick up the X3 Pro and saying, let's do another phone exactly like the X3 Pro with exactly what the X3 Pro has in it, I don't think I'll be able to go below 20,000 now. It is going to be a very unique product where it will, I think, find its own segment altogether.
And that's very honest of you as well, that you don't want to set the wrong expectations. So 30 के आसपास पकड़ के चलते हैं अपन, है ना? ये कह लेते हैं. Now, Anuj, coming to the launch timeline, because you had announced officially that it is going to launch in the third quarter of 2021. We are already here. And I was watching one of your interviews where you also said that you will try to bring it before the end of July. And it's mid-July. So now what are we looking at in terms of the launch date?
Yeah, that's a lot of pressure. Definitely, I mean, when we said end of July, then we went and looked at the feasibility of it from the factory. It looks like it's possible. So yeah, we should look at a launch within this month.
Within this month. And I am also saying this because आपने वो एक social media post किया था where you had picked up a creative and you did your own version of it. And since then, there have been a lot of speculations that it might launch on the same date as well. So is that happening?
That's a little hard, but I did not do that, by the way.
Of course.
I have a completely out of control social media team. So I saw this a little later and I was like, okay, what is this? I didn't know the original context as well. So it took me some time to figure out what are you talking about. But yeah, I mean, I think I need to kind of create a process to rein the social media team in. Otherwise, they just keep doing mad stuff.
But a same date तो नहीं है, चलिए, right? हो भी सकती है.
No, it's hard. It's hard for me to bring it forward too much.
Yeah. Anuj, a couple of quick questions before I know we are short on time. So one is that we already kind of have an idea that the Poco F3 GT is going to be a rebranded variant of the Redmi K40 Gaming Edition. And it's absolutely a brand call. People do that all the time. Now, what I want to really understand from you is that what are we looking at in terms of India-specific features or upgrades from the variant that is already out there? Are there going to be any changes, or is it going to be the same product with just a different name?
I can neither confirm or deny that.
Okay. Sir, आपकी नाम ही यहाँ है. Okay, so the last question that I have for you is that now I was using one of your phones very recently, and at that time it just came across my mind that for now your products are running on MIUI, right? So are there any plans of bringing Poco's own custom Android skin at some point? If not in immediate future, are there conversations around that as well?
So we're definitely discussing this, but yeah. These are large discussions that all the countries will have to chime in. So Poco right now is obviously in multiple countries across the world.
And in terms of future launches, what are we expecting? अभी तो आ रहा है F3 GT, अभी 3 साल wait कराएंगे कि और?
Not really. So again, not too many products from our side. Yeah. I don't think we are going to flood the market. We've done M3, M3 Pro, X3 Pro, and now the F3 GT this year. Last year we launched 5 devices. So I don't really see us going beyond that number.
Achha, so one more for this year?
Hopefully. I'm not sure of it, but maybe one more.
Okay.
But the whole idea is that, the devices that we bring in are disruptive enough that they continue to kind of shake up the market. Again, one product that I'm really, really proud of is the X3 Pro. Launched in end of March, early April. We are now in July, undefeated in terms of the price performance ratio that product stands for. So create products which really make a mark rather than too many products, and hopefully one of them sticks.
Thank you so much, Anuj, for your time. You have always been kind with your time and very honest with your answers as well. I hope that a lot of people are really excited to, see the Poco F3 GT, and हम लोग को भी मिलेगा, so we'll do an unboxing and review of that as well. Sir, अगर headphone जाके दिखा दो थोड़ा सा जाते जाते. But thank you so much. It is always a pleasure to talk to you and have you on the show.
Thanks, Manas.